Welcome back, everybody. It is the Working Brother back at you with a talk. This time we've got a special talk. We've got two guests, as you can see right here. Drago Bosnic and Nebojsa Malic, also known as the Nebulator, and Drago and the Nebulator. Welcome to the Working Brother Talks. It's not your first time here. First time in 2025. First time that we've got two guests on. This is a real special that we've got going. Do you want to introduce yourselves for the people who might not know you? Go on. Drago, you want to go first?
Well, I mean, I would leave that to Nebojsa, who's more senior, not in years, but I mean in prominence.
Well, I guess as an occasional guest, I lived in America for 28 years. I've been a journalist, columnist, commentator, analyst, translator, all sorts of interesting things. And now I'm got a channel on Telegram called The Nebulator, where I frequently, but not always, predict and try to predict historical and political events of the present day. Lots of commentary on like the current war in Ukraine, happenings in the European Union, and sometimes even happenings about America, where I often say I refuse to comment on politics because it's civil war by other means. But as of January 20th, I might have to change that.
That's a very modest introduction. You also, how can I say? As we've discussed before, I'll leave links to both of the talks with both of you guys. You've worked for RT, and you also worked for how can I say, the news cycle even before you were in the journalism sphere, in the sense that like you lived it basically, much like our other special guest today in this special episode that we're having today, Drago Bosnic, who's, by the way, for the record, Nebulator or Nebojsa is from Serbian Bosnia, I guess you could say, like formerly Serbian parts of, still Serbian parts of formerly Serbian Bosnia. Let's put it that way, from Yugoslav times. So, like, he's ex-Yugoslav refugee who went to the States, and our other refugee today is Dragoljub Bosnic. You want to introduce yourself? Tell people where you're from and what you do.
Yeah, I'm from the occupied Serbian Republic of Krajina, essentially, and I've also had to come to Serbia as a refugee. Unfortunately, I mean, I'm not sorry that I'm in my country. It's just that I'm sorry that my country is not where I am from, and hopefully at some point it might be. But that's another story. I'm also a journalist and geopolitical and military analyst. I'm writing for the BRICS information portal, and a bunch of other portals that are essentially republishing my stuff. So that's pretty much about me.
And as subscribers, viewers might know, I'm also a refugee, but I only realized I was a refugee when I was like 25, and I realized that, like, you know, hey, I did move with my family, but like it wasn't really voluntary, you know what I mean? And then I had this whole life afterwards, like abroad, that also was like semi-voluntary, you know? So like, we've all got that in common, so we're all like Yugoslav refugees of a sort. We're all also Serbian by happenstance. And we're here to talk about the Ferrari protests. I'm officially calling them the Ferrari protests from now on. The narratives have gotten like so loud and so annoying. Oh, by the way, everybody who's new here, hi, welcome. This is a comedy show. Nothing we say here has anything to do with reality, so enjoy. If you find any resemblance to reality and things going on around you, that's purely coincidental. Ferrari. Where's my Ferrari flag? Did I save it? I don't know if I saved the Ferrari flag. I'll have to get into that in a second. Why don't you guys give the audience a brief rundown of the history of color revolutions in Serbia and the current protests? Like, as quick as you can, like 15 to like 45 minutes. While I find this meme.
Back in the time of Rurik the Great, you see.
I saw Trump. Trump's like, I can't wait to talk to Putin direct. I wanted to make a meme of that exactly. Like Trump, like 25 years later after talking to Putin. Go on.
I mean, I suppose as the titular historian here, let me try to give it a quick rundown, much quicker than Putin. I've got the quickest history, the best histories, believe me. There's been a history of mass protests in Serbia going back to basically March 27, 1941, which did not turn out very fortuitously. About 10 days later, for the record, I actually support the cause that these protesters were championing at that point in time, but there's no arguing that it didn't turn out well 10 days later when the entire Axis invaded. And then you have the mass protests in 1991, where the self-described Democrats were trying to oust the self-described communist government. That didn't go well for the Democrats, and then these Democrats later turned out to be NATO lobbyists. Who knew? And then you have the student protests of 1996-97, which were supposed to be spontaneous outbursts of dissatisfaction with the fact that the sanctions haven't been fully lifted yet after the Bosnian peace treaty was signed. And that sort of fizzled out somehow, even though it had the support of the church and, again, the same Democrats. And then there was a war in 1999 that the protector of these very same Democrats, the globalist American empire, was waging against Serbia. And somehow everybody sort of closed ranks and was demonstrating against that. And then in October 2000, these most democratic, spontaneous Democrats to ever Democrat democratically ended up overthrowing the government and setting fire to the ballots from the previous election while claiming it was stolen. I believe when that happens in the US, they call it January 6th. And all this government to ever be democratically elected. And then the New York Times and the Washington Post and the Guardian and the Observer and all these other outlets in the West were like, yeah, by the way, we enabled this with suitcases of cash and secret training programs in Hungary. And this was a successful experiment in how to win other people's elections. And we're going to do it again. And we just did it in Georgia, and we just did it in Ukraine. And isn't this wonderful? Well, fast forward 20 years later, it was not. There was one other mass protest in Serbia in relatively recent years. This was in 2008 when the so-called fake state of Kosovo declared so-called fake independence. And Serbian patriots, who were by that point sort of recovering from the most democratic Democrat government, decided to go to the streets and protest, and it was immediately derailed by some people who tried to loot a sneaker store. Immediately. Somebody also tried to set fire to the American embassy. That ended up strangely treated as a distraction. The Americans make a ritual once a year of objecting to it, but don't really show any interest in doing that because they built themselves a nice little castle up on the hill on the south side of Belgrade, in the neighborhood of the Israeli embassy, because, location. And there hadn't really been any sort of street protests since. Up until 2020, when you did have an actual street protest that the government broke up with, like, cavalry police, that was against lockdowns. And it actually worked. People took a lot of beatings, but the lockdowns ended. And then we come to the 2023 protests that were essentially hijacked by either inspired or hijacked by the political opposition, who identified themselves as the most democratic Democrats to ever Democrat. Also green left front, or a variety of these pocket parties that I have very little use or respect for, even if they sometimes say true and good things, because they're essentially, political chameleons. And they vultured, they were exploiting the deaths of children in a school shooting. So they were using the school shooting to try to get power on the street, while the government was using to disarm the citizenry. and this is one of those times for a Godzilla meme. Let them fight, and I hope they both lose. And then, and now we get to these Ferrari protests that were also predicated on the deaths of people. So basically, we had this horrific accident, sabotage, mishap. Nobody knows. At the train station in Novi Sad that was, back in the 1960s, built in record time to please the deadline imposed by the communist government, and had this really odd construction of a canopy that was ropes or some such. Somebody who's into construction might describe this better. And essentially, about a year or so back, this current government, as part of this bullet train project with the Chinese, supposedly either did renovate this or didn't renovate this and put a canopy on top of this canopy. In any case, in November, the canopy collapsed and killed everybody that was underneath, about 15 people, and crippled 2 more. This was horrifying. I've been through that station. I've gone under that canopy there, but for the grace of God go I, and I'm certainly interested in finding out what happened and how, but it immediately got turned into some kind of general student protest for free education and also communism.
Wait, don't forget the school shooting that also got turned into a protest against the government.
I was just mentioning that happened in 2023, and then the net result of that was an election that these people lost, and bigly. Apparently, so you would think that, after failing, they would rethink their strategy, but here they are trying again. And except there's a touch of like student protests from the 90s and a dash of communism. And if you start looking into who's actually organizing this, because Lord knows any sort of nationalist group in this country.
Before we get into NED, Victoria Nuland, and all the goodies that come with cookies, let's have Drago give us a rundown of maybe a little bit of his take and why he thinks this might be not what it appears on BBC and CNN and NDH1 and so on. But the point is, Drago, you have the floor. And then after that, I got a really good question for both of you.
Yeah, I don't have much to add to what Nebojsa just explained. Recommendations. I just want to mention that back in September, the NED got a new board of directors, and one of the people on that board of directors was Victoria Nuland. And that has nothing to do with the protest.
What's NED for the people who watch politics only when their social media tells them to? What's NED?
National Endowment for Democracy, which is a CIA front that's used to organize color revolutions in various countries whenever they want to change the
But I don't care about that. Like Djokovic won, and the students have like good views and good points, and like I don't care about politics, but the students are right. Like I don't pay attention to politics. I don't care about politics, but the students are right. As a Serb watching this, how do you explain that you two are not working for the government and are just bots shilling and protecting the regime? Because obviously you're spilling these like Russian propaganda, I don't know where you get these narratives that people are getting funding from like the CIA,
Well, all right, let me go first because you look at past experience to predict future behavior, right? If you run this scenario 20 times in 15 countries over the course of 25 years, the reasonable assumption is that you're doing it again. I'm sorry, the default is assumption whenever there's a mass protest anywhere, whether it's in Venezuela or Mali or Indonesia or Serbia, is that the NED is behind it. I'm sorry, it is. You got to prove otherwise at this stage. That's sort of the default state of things. Secondly, my question right away was, okay, fine. Some of these people make good points, but who are they? Where do they come from? What do they want? Don't really tell us what they want. They have these Soviets or plenums or whatever set up. Okay, that's a whiff of, 1917. We've been through there, done that. It wasn't very fun. I'm not reflexively anti-communist, but you might as well try to form a Fabian society for all its relevance to this point. So, okay, my question is: we know, us who live here, how well organized the national opposition is. The sovereignist movement, the patriots, whatever, the right wingers. You call it what you will. The make Serbia great again.
Wait, did you call them white wingers?
The right wingers.
Oh, right wingers. All right. I thought it was like a jab at the white Russians. Anyway.
Well, yeah. I guess. Well, that didn't work out for them either, back in '44. But point is, we know the state of the make Serbia great again faction. All right, they don't exist. There's a handful of them. They can't organize their way out of a paper bag. It's whether we want it or not, it's true. And then you have these protests that have a different, let's say, veneer of advertising, different marketing, different narrative. Not at all like nationalist or pushing that particular narrative. And you've got all these people in high vis vests coordinating everything, and always in the first ranks. You got folks doing the Instagram thing in the front line of these blockades. I'm like, this is straight out of the NED playbook. Actually, it's not even the NED playbook. It's the freaking Croatian student Soviet handbook from.
You got cut out. Your internet cut out for a second. You were saying the Croatian student what?
Yeah, they called this the Croatian Student Cookbook from 2009. It was literally, they wrote down this like anarchist guide for taking over universities based on their 2009 protests, which were similarly, funded from the outside. And just the other day, you have these Croatian activists who were giving a workshop, getting rounded up and arrested. I'm sorry, but like once is coincidence, twice is happenstance. 52nd time is enemy freaking action. All right. I don't have to be anybody's activist. I'm not a member of any party. All right. I'm not a member of any party. I'm not working for any government.
Neither have I, nor have I been, nor have I ever voted, for the record. Except in student elections. Speaking of elections, there's a funny story. I voted in student elections when I was in university. Drago's already giggling. He, I think, maybe recalls the story. I also was participating in the counting of the votes in my student elections in Cyprus, and for the international seats in the student parliament. So there was an Iranian faction, there was a Serbian faction, and there was another faction, let's put it that way. And we combined forces with the Iranian faction, and we also organized the vote counting, and everything was the way it was supposed to be.
So you successfully fortified elections before. Nice admission.
Exactly. In college in Cyprus. And that was my first and only touch with voting in elections. And I think that was instrumental in learning about democracy. So
just before Drago cuts in, I do have to share an opinion about democracy. One of the most profound memes I've ever heard was from I believe his name is Osho Rajneesh, sort of an Indian like villain who had a very profound opinion about democracy, of being for the people, by the people, and of the people, but people are retarded.
Yeah. It's Osho wisdom. I actually have that. I could probably find that while we're talking. But in any case, I won't. But I wanted to pop this up there because you guys were talking about it, and this is the social media in Serbia. Thanks to a national meme coordination body, we've got like a ton of their memes because basically they are the coordination body of memes in Serbia, and they are on point most of the time. But yeah, we've got the regime bots, we've got the opposition bots, we've got the neutral observers, we've got students on the street, and we've got the bad drivers. There's a lot of fucking bad drivers. Also, disclaimer, running people over is not cool. like it doesn't matter if you're pro opposition or against opposition or like not a part of the protests. Running people over, not cool. Also driving your scooter in like traffic, not cool. But that's not necessarily related. But yeah, people should learn how to drive, number one, and number two, people should learn how not to fall for narratives. Not to mention that like the protests are supposedly about like you said, the tragedy that happened, and they're basically energy vampires off the death of people. And thank God nothing happened to this girl that was hit recently in traffic. I mean, on the streets during the protest, that was run over by a car or hit by the car. Not run over. She bounced off. I don't know. Technically, it's not getting run over. The guy apparently had been previously sentenced multiple times, and you could say, like, what's to say he wasn't paid? What's to say this isn't a strategy of tension to like go start something and see what happens? Drago?
Yeah, I mean, some people, probably conspiracy theorists, would say that this was tried in 2014 in Ukraine when these Georgian Democrats with BB guns decided to, contribute to democracy. And I'm pretty sure that people remember. And for those who don't know, I'm not gonna be sarcastic anymore. They were shooting both the police and the protesters with sniper rifles in order to stir up trouble, of course, and it resulted in hundreds of people who were killed and wounded. So when they want to steer up something, they do it. It's not an issue. I just want to point out one thing. When protests happen, they often happen for good reason. The problem is they have these ways of controlling protests and pushing them towards the direction that they need for geopolitical or internal political purposes. So a lot of people who protest are not even aware that they are being pushed together into a sort of like this color revolution. So you might protest.
Conspiracy theorist.
Conspiracy theorists essentially. You might actually go to protest for very good reasons, because I don't know, you don't have enough money to buy for to pay for bills or anything like that. But the problem is your problems are not going to be resolved on the street. You're only going to get used for political purposes. So this is the issue I have with protests that are organized by these people and led. I'm not saying that every have ways of controlling masses. This is the issue. And I don't support the government because I'm saying it. As Nebojsa said, this is essentially what has happened like 50 times so far. And if you don't see the pattern, you're either willfully ignorant, blind, or both. I don't know how else to describe it, because if you want your country to prosper, you have to find ways to circumvent these color revolution attempts and try to do something else. And because otherwise you're just a useful idiot. And of course your country is going to pay for it, just as was the case in Ukraine and all over former Yugoslavia, Eastern Europe, former Soviet Union. Unfortunately, many of the people who organized our first color revolution, which by the way is called the Black Revolution for some reason, they went on to serve the CIA in the former Soviet Union. I'm not going to name names. I'm just going to say that this guy's last name, when it's translated to English, could be Pristovic, I suppose, because the Serbian word for priest for Serbs, that's probably going to sound familiar. And he has actually helped organize revolutions in Kyrgyzstan, in Ukraine, in Russia too. They also tried that in 2012, I think.
There's so
I think it's
to use the terminology that was recently used by the students when they said that Belgrade has been a stage for the protest. When I saw that word stage, I was like, that's very interesting choice of word. To outline, you're saying that there's a canvas of things that can be tied to this person and these kind of activities that keep happening all over all kinds of democratically endowed nations.
Yeah, the Serbian, by the way, the Serbian word for priest is pop, and you get the idea. So that's pretty much it.
I want to take a little break and remind everybody that this channel is not eligible for monetization. No surprises there, right? Thank everybody who's been supporting me, bought me a coffee, and everybody who has been on the Patreon. And remind everybody that the links are below. I'm going to leave links also to Drago's and Nebojsa's both Telegrams and YouTubes and whatever else there is. And yeah, now let's continue with the Ferrari protests. Did I flash that Ferrari thing up? I think I might have accidentally, but I didn't comment on it. Where's the Ferrari thing? There it is. The top one being no surrender of Kosovo, and the bottom one being the Ferrari flag. Because apparently, not apparently, like there was a video, I couldn't find it in time. Both of my guests, I don't think, have seen it, but there was a protest, I'm guessing it was like 4 or 5 months ago, maybe longer, in a smaller town. Like, I don't want to offend anyone, maybe it's a city, I don't remember where it was, where like a civilian Audi older vehicle with an older gentleman inside 50s, 60s hit some protesters and drove through them while they were walking and blocking the road on a crosswalk, which is obviously illegal. I mean, the hitting the pedestrians is illegal, to be clear. He was chased down by random people from the protests and gets pulled out of the car, and the only flag you can see in the background is like a Ferrari flag. So like there's no Serbian flags, there's no nothing else flags on that particular video. So it was just funny. This meme basically outlines that pretty simply. And today when we were setting up for this, as I was talking to Nebojsa, where are my BBC brainwashing news? Is that here? There it is. No, this is the Nova RSS SS. Serbia protiv nasilja. So Serbia against violence. So this is one of those older protests. We're going to get into that as well. We've got all kinds of B-roll and anecdotes. Fenomen Ferrari zastave na protestima u Beogradu. I'm doing the like liberal BBC tone of like what I imagine they would be reading it like. First of all, the protests were like in Serbia, like, and the flag is in Serbia too. But long story short, BBC will tell you, and so will NDH1. No, oh sorry, it was Nova SS. That this is actually from 96, I think they were saying. 90. That this flag, this thing comes from, where is it? 96, 97. Against the Slobodan Milosevic regime. Did you guys know that the Ferrari flag has a history of resistance against regimes in Serbian territories?
I mean, I was in America at that point, and was not closely paying attention to various European.
Not a fan
brands.
of Ferrari, huh? All I'm hearing is you weren't a fan of Ferraris.
I was more of a Dodge guy at the time, but I guess what the promise was like, once this guy goes away, we're all going to drive Ferraris. Well, how did that work out?
They're still holding the flags, so there's that. And then there's also this thing that you sent along. Nebojsa sent Mirjana Vasovic, right? Did I say that right? I think I said that right. So she's a professor of some sort. She said something politics history, I don't know, but she made a couple of very good points in this interview that they did. Do you Nebojsa want to maybe clue people in?
Right. So she's a retired professor of political psychology. So she's got a bit of expertise with both Marxist.
That's what it was.
Yeah, so she's got a bit of expertise with like both Marxist thinking and Western thinking, and she's basically saying that student protests are sort of one of those things that you can't really be against because you're primed to agree with children, and Serbs love their children, clearly, obviously. So it makes them a perfect patsy for being cynically exploited by outside forces. And what bugs her is that their demands are pretty inarticulate, vague, and they can always say, well, that's not enough.
The shifting goalposts.
Right. And the other thing is that, like, their organization, she said, was didn't claim at any point.
Wait! You got censored. You got censored by Telegram. Durov is in France giving us troubles. So can you say that again?
The methods used in these student protests are right out of the 2009 Croatian cookbook from their student protests, complete with like the student Soviets, or plenum as they call. I have to say that there was another plenum type, color revolution in, I want to say 2011 or 2012 in Bosnia, of all places, where you had essentially a faction of the Bosnian Muslims try to overthrow the ruling faction of the Bosnian Muslims by demanding a, civic society type thing. And they even set fire to the like regional parliament in Sarajevo and tried to do this, Arab Spring type thing.
Wait. You're saying protesters set fire to something? Like, unbelievable.
I know.
It almost as shocking as finding out that it happened in Ukraine and also in Serbia. Right. Fun fact.
But basically, once the American embassy sent an envoy to the local government and said, you need to talk to these people, and the local government said, no, we don't think we will. Go home and tell them to stand down. And that's exactly what happened. They stood down. I wonder who conveyed the message. So that's an interesting experience. Pretty instructive, I think. Let me backtrack here for a second, just to basically go to my American perspective on things, because I feel like I need to share that. The value of street protests was perhaps demonstrated at best on January 6, 2021, when you had this massive, after a year of rioting, Black Lives Matter, half the country on fire, people who did all sorts of things, never getting jailed or fined. In fact, they got $1 million settlements for wrongful arrests from the cities run by their political parties. You have a rally of Trump supporters in Washington, which is 97%, I believe, controlled by the other party. And they had literally been peacefully assembled outside the Capitol, and all of a sudden a group of agitators goes, let's go storm the building. Right at the moment when the procedure was starting to actually object to the election that I mentioned before was fortified, that Democrats later boasted about fortifying.
I have no idea what you're talking about. I don't know how that could happen.
That election was entirely on the up, and it was the best election ever. And so these people, end up inside the Capitol building, and the media narrative immediately becomes, this was, an armed rebellion, this was an insurrection, jail them all, arrest them all, family members, turn them into the police. More than 1,500 of these people have been hunted down and thrown into, first jailed without charges for months, and then, sentenced to years in prison on what was supposedly a misdemeanor, and then they fortified with terrorism charges. And Trump just pardoned all of them. And, all of these Democrats and their judges are furious because, oh my God, this was the greatest threat to the republic ever.
I was recording yesterday out of rage turned into motivation with George, the regular guest here, and he was telling me that some of these billionaires are happy that they've got this revolution on a dial type of thing, dial a revolution,
and it's a way to win other people's elections.
And I was thinking, like, we were talking about it. I think I might be on the recording, it might have been offline. But in any case, we were talking, and, people tie it back to the Facebook Arab Spring and that famous meeting that happened in New York, beforehand with all the like Facebook execs and the like leaders of the Egyptian revolution and so on and so forth, or infamous, I should say, not famous, haha, because infamous means bad. I found that out the hard way in English class in like 9th grade or something. Anyway, you can't say infamous about good people. But anyway, so the infamous meeting with Facebook, and people often omit or forget the like 99% protests. You remember that?
Oh yes,
This is what democracy looks like. This is what democracy looks like. I was watching some leftist losers weep about Trump now, and they're doing that. This is what democracy looks like. Like, no, that's not what democracy looks like. Democracy looks like voting, you know, not screaming in the streets. So I was getting at what I'm trying to, like, the conclusion of what I'm trying to build here is that the whole democracy protests in the U.S. with the 99% was like a dry run local test of the Facebook revolution that happened in Egypt, which is now known as the Diala Revolution, which is what's happening here in Serbia. No?
Yeah, don't take my word for it. There's a former State Department official called Mike Benz, as in Mercedes-Benz. He's not related, but that's how you spell his name, who basically has this whole body of work online, mostly on Twitter or X, and he goes into painstaking detail on who's behind a lot of these things. What's the collusion between the State Department, the NED, CIA, and all of these other groups. I mean, he's the guy's the insider's insider, and he's been blowing this thing wide open for months, and he's rarely been wrong. So, you know, if you don't believe us, you know, go track him down and check what he has to say, because it will really be an eye opener in the Clockwork Orange sense.
You know, Hoakin. Both of you know of Hoakin, and you know him. He has interesting perspective on protests in general. But one of the things he's drawn my attention to, especially with regards to, you know, Serbian student protests, like and Drago, you mentioned this offline. You may attest to it now, but when you're bored and you have nothing better to do, and you're young and you have no money and there's nowhere that you're going to go out, why not go to a protest? You know, you can go like pick up, you can go like meet people, you can spend some time, have a walk. It's good for your health, you know. Drago, you want to tell us your story?
Yeah, I can't name names because, you know, that's going to cause some legal issues, I would say. But you know, a few years ago, there was this protest of freelancers, and me being a freelancer at the time, I decided to join just to see how it looks like. And let's just say I didn't like what I see.
I forgot about the protest of freelancers. Like that was another thing. Lol.
Oh, that's what. Well, it's a different story. Yeah.
Go on.
You want me to say it? Okay. So
yeah. I just forgot that it existed. I like forgot that the like in the timeline of protests, like I just forgot that one existed basically.
Yeah, you know the some of the insider information I got after I started working in journalism is that the EU essentially wanted us to be destroyed. I mean, the freelancer industry in Serbia, because we were a competition, because there was 100,000 of us and we were making a lot of money. And of course, if you make good money, then you can't be used as slave labor in their countries.
But the EU loves us. We're on the path to the EU for so many years. It's like perfect. Yeah. They love us from the heart.
Yeah.
They love.
Just like the Germans loved us.
What better sign of love would they show?
Right?
And of course, you know, when I saw how the protest works and how these people essentially organize this and how they lumped us all together, people who with completely different reasons for protesting, and how they tried to use us for their own agenda, which was repulsive. I mean, they were talking about these Western values that I think any sane person would reject entirely. You know, we had these like pro alphabet soup people and these other, guys who wanted these things to be legalized in our country and pushed onto our kids and so on and so on. And then I just, decided I don't want to have to do anything with these people. On the contrary, I would be against them. I would join the fucking police to beat them, as far as I'm concerned. So, and I'm talking about the police that was trying to beat us because we were protesting for very different reasons, And this is why I just, I don't want to be used ever again in such a way, because it's going to be used against my people, against my country, just as it's been used, for decades, by the same people, by the same organizations, for same reasons. So in that regard, I just advise all these young kids that are essentially, protesting for something that they think is good, think about your future, because the people that are supporting you don't really care about your future. They want to use you just like they used our people for centuries, essentially.
Can I jump in real quick?
Of course. Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
So what strikes me about a lot of these protests, whether in the US or in Serbia or in other places, is that a lot of people involved are sort of looking for a shortcut. They don't want to do the work, as the socialists in America would put it.
When you say the people involved, you mean the people on the street involved, like the useful
the
idiots,
soldiers, the foot soldiers,
the weekend political followers. They follow sports during the week, and on the weekend they follow politics.
Well, but even the organizers, and here's the thing: even the organizers of these things, because politics is hard. Politics involves organizing. It involves managing egos. It involves building an infrastructure. Starting a party from scratch is almost impossible. I mean, in this country here, the easiest way is to hijack an existing party and just splinter it off. Building something from scratch is difficult. It's hard. And even if you manage to do so and succeed, all of a sudden, half your people leave for reasons unknown, and all of a sudden you find out that some of your candidates were really working for somebody else all along, and there's this whole pernicious thing about the party setting the list, but the mandates being individual. There's a whole bunch of issues that are making this more difficult. But politics is difficult, all right? And so everybody's trying to do the Trotter independent traders school of getting rich quick and just looking for a shortcut to political success, right? Here's the problem. Try to take a shortcut towards success, you will most often end up taking a shortcut to chains, because you're going to be sort of, harnessed into somebody else's wagon. Somebody else who has a lot more experience, a lot more money, and a lot more practice at this than you.
Wait, is that you? Did you do that pop-up thing?
I guess so. When I waved, it gave a thumbs up.
No way. Is it Telegram? No way. Or your iPhone, maybe.
Yeah.
What? That was weird.
I don't know. But in any case, so don't, if you're trying to take these shortcuts, be aware that somebody else is also taking shortcuts with you, using you as their vessel. Just don't let them. I mean, it's like trying to play chess by throwing the board around. You're not going to win the game that way. I just, even looking at these people who have these, basic opinions that I tend to agree with, this is not the way to do this, because it's literally letting. What was that line? Great line that people used about the Luigi fellow who, a brilliant young computer guy in America who ended up with a back injury and then went on a really bad drug trip, and then 6 months later, after spending some time in the wilderness, he shows up in New York with a gun, shoots a CEO of an insurance company, and tries to become some sort of folk hero. And somebody said, bro just got his brain one shot by ayahuasca or whatever, and let all the demons of this world in, and all of a sudden he's a completely different person. Don't get your mind one shot by people whose literal job it is to hijack these things.
Yeah. Luigi, no comment. What can I say? One shot by ayahuasca. Sounds no scope for the gamers out there. He got no scope by ayahuasca. We're already like 44 minutes into this. I can't believe time is passing by so fast. We're definitely, if you guys are free, we're gonna stick around probably for another one because I've got like 72 other things to like pop up here, which will be good for the algorithm because maybe people will actually subscribe and come back. You know, but also
great channel. Everybody should subscribe.
So it is your Drago. Do that as well. Let's see if it's Telegram.
No, I'm not that advanced.
Yeah, I didn't think so. So it's not Telegram. It's your iPhone, man. It's your AI iPhone camera that's also listening into this call and reporting back to Musk and Trump and Zuckerberg.
I just want to send my best regards to the Maven guys who might be listening.
I have no idea what you're talking about. I also want to say hello to all of my personal monitors, to the Chinese, hello, to the Russians, hello, to the Serbians, hello. I think about 30% of my viewers is intelligence agencies. Hello to the Brits.
Since we're at it, can I give a shout out to my NSA handler? Hi, Steve.
Oh, you know him by name. Nice. In any case, yeah, like I said, comedy show, nothing to do with reality. Anything that has to do with reality is purely coincidental, just like this. So these new protests have this bloody hand because, you know, your hands are bloody. Oh, by the way, that woman in that interview, the professor, she was saying that saying your hands are bloody, like making it collective, like making it pluralist, is basically fascist because, like, she's the expert. I'm just kind of paraphrasing, but she was saying that it's fascist because you're making it like us against them, and you're making it like a collectivist thing, and you want collective punishment for all of them, including anyone in the party, quote unquote. So it gives a whole other aspect to it, but that's not the reason that I actually brought this up. I actually brought this up because Bunt pointed out that this little symbol here, Mjaft, is actually an Albanian NGO from where's the thing? From 2003. Do you know anything significant that happened in 2003, guys? In the region?
That I know of.
No, huh?
Well, I tell you what, this seems like the first time that we stole something from the Albanians. First time for anything.
We is very like a loose definition because I don't think there's any we in the people who like organized this being a symbol. But yeah, so like they've got Serbians going around with Albanian symbols now, being happy about it.
Well, I'm just shocked that nobody's thought of, you know, doing the whole Lord of the Rings thing and just doing the, you know, Saruman's orc's hand symbol on their faces. That would be a lot more, you know, marketing friendly and a lot more Instagram friendly. But I guess washing off that from your face.
Didn't they do that?
Exactly
Didn't they do that eating their hands thing? Isn't that like basically the same thing? That whole screaming and eating their hands performance that they did. Speaking of performances, where is my... Let me see if I minimize this, then it might be there. There we go. Without having to look for it. So, National Meme Coordination Body, as always, with the hitting stuff. This here, these first little scenes, Serbs, go look it up. If you haven't seen it, it's a performance by the students that you're supporting, where they go dress up as priests and Serbian JNA, I guess, soldiers, and they do like a mass killing thing, and then they make out because, you know, gayness is good. And Serbs are bad, and the church is bad. And this is sarcasm for the people who are thick. And also, there was a scene, which I'm not going to show, where this lovely lady who's an actress, and obviously this is art, and you guys just don't understand because you're like imbeciles and you're like simpletons. It's supposed to make you get angry, and that is the art in it. Is a woman who like takes her tit out on stage because why not, shock value, and then she puts on a shirt because she obviously wasn't that comfortable with her tits being on stage, although you can hear the cameras clicking like as she's doing that. Those NED dollars are being spent well, and then she pukes on the Serbian flag. No, she puts the Serbian flag on the ground first, and then she pukes on the Serbian flag. So that's art, and you just don't understand. And if you think, like the professor was saying, that it is actually satanization of the enemy, it is not, like you're making him the absolute evil, for which there is no forgiveness, there is only death. You're not discussing politics and discourse. You're not helping anything, number one. And number two, another thing that she pointed out that I wanted to throw out there in front of everyone, including you two, was... Damn it, it's on the tip of my tongue, but it lost me. I lost it. I'm doing too many things at the same time here in the background while I'm talking. So, and National Meme Coordination Body said... laugh, you idiots, or monkeys.
Well, they're also trying to present anybody who disagrees with them as, a stupid simpleton who is fit only to be beaten, which is a line from Gorski Vienna. It's fine. It's a Serbian epic poem, but the issue is it was uttered by a Turk. They're supposed to be the bad guys in the poem, so you're identifying with the villains. Thanks for letting us know what side you're on. I mean, come on, who's writing this stuff? Like. Obviously, the quality of imperial propaganda has drastically decreased ever since Trump took over and abolished funding to all of these NGOs.
Unfortunately, I don't think Trump's effect has come in quite yet, but I'm waiting for it. Drago, you were going to say something?
Yeah, I just want to mention that all the polls in recent decades have shown that the two the most trusted institutions in the Serbian people are the church and the military. And it's not accidental that they put both of these, on ice essentially in this play, and it shows what they want to destroy. And it shows what they think about us as a nation and what they are planning to do with us as a nation. So I'm glad that they're showing it because it's only going to cement our resistance to this, at least with people who love their country and people.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Regarding the collapse thing, I just wanted to, because we're going to get into a lot more things. We're coming up on the hour. I'm going to cut this a little bit short, and maybe I'll remember what that woman was saying in the meantime. But Facebook, when the collapse thing happened, some of my friends posted on Facebook that they were marked safe at Novi Sad railway station, Vojvodina. That, for me personally, was like one of the first hints that there's something very, very fishy going on here, because those kind of marked safe things started happening around the same time that Arab Spring started happening.
I mean, look, what happened with that train station was horrible, and I wouldn't wish it upon anybody.
We're not discussing whether it's horrible or not. That goes without saying.
Yeah.
People, like we were discussing the girl who got hit by the car. We're not like the victims are victims regardless of what actually happened. What actually happened and how it's being dealt with is what we're discussing here.
Right. And that's what I was going to segue into. What bugs me is that basically there is a group of people for whom anything horrifying that happens, be it an accident or or a premeditated crime or anything in between, is simply a linchpin for a narrative. Let's use this to advance our political goals. That's cynical, that's destructive, and there's no one who can persuade me that this is in any which way, shape, or form constructive to a society, whether it's this one or anyone else.
It's opportunistic at like is like, you know, at the end of the day, it's just opportunistic and disgusting, you know, like anything that happens, it's all like, oh, let's get in the streets, and then sooner, like within 2 days, it turns into, oh, what do we want? We want the resignation of the government. It's like, come on, again, for the last 25 years, like, get over it.
Well, if you really want to understand these tactics, again, you know, watch Mike Pence, but also read Saul Alinsky's Rules for Radicals. It's a checklist.
I have no idea what you're talking about. That sounds like it sounds like time traveling Russian propaganda. Sounds like the Russians with the time traveling machine went back in time and made these things appear and gave these ideas to like people who like bought it.
Well, as far as I know, it was never published on Joy Reid's blog, but we can't check because it's defunct. Very sad.
I don't know who that is, but audience members might find that funny. I'm sure they will. All right, we're coming up on the hour here. I'm gonna give both of you a chance to like sum up this first hour of this talk, and because we had Nebojsa go first at the beginning. Why don't you go first now, Drago?
Yeah, whenever you hear there's a protest, it's certainly not organized by the U.S. government or any of the organizations, NGOs that they fund. So just go there, and I'm sure it's going to work out just great.
Nebojsa?
Governments are not changed on the street. And if on the rare occasions that they are, that revolution turns out very, very poorly for the people who actually brought it about. I don't remember any historical precedent that would go otherwise. It's inevitably the revolutions eat their children. And so anybody who tries to be a child of revolution in the hope that they would be in charge afterwards really ought to keep that in mind, that, you know, more likely they're going to be, metaphorically speaking, eaten instead. So if you want political change, you gotta do the work, and that work is difficult, and it's often boring, and there's plenty of obstacles in your way, and it's a lifelong project. And nobody said, it's going to be easy. Are you using it?
I just want to give another shout out to everyone's NSA and Five Eyes agents because they're obviously wanted a shout out here at the end with cutting off both of your little blurbs. But in any case, thank you both for making the time for this. I just want to pop up a message from Michael Jordan here.
Stop it. Get some help.
Everybody. Stop it. Get some help. Let's put some music up here. Everybody who stuck around to the end, thank you. Like, share, subscribe. You know what to do. You two guys will be right back immediately. And we'll get into a lot more of these various historical and current color revolutions in Serbia. All right. Peace out, everyone. See you soon. And remember, like he said, revolutions eat their own. Wait. Or move to Syria. It worked out there perfectly, right? You want democracy? Go Syria. Works there. See you later, everyone.